Sexism in modern society. Girls and sexism. From the very beginning, there have been prejudices, stereotypes, gender-based discrimination, and so much else that we could fill a book. Question is, how has sexism stuck around for so long?
Nearly everyone where one turns, they can see something sexist, be it the objectification of females in ads or movies, sexist jokes, old-fashioned views based on stereotypes, or anything else that looks at the differences between females and males and comes to the conclusion that females are inferior. There are the traditional trait stereotypes, which call for women to be submissive, devoted, and obey the men in their lives with unswerving obedience, as well as display girls and women as passive, overly sentimental, dependent, and meek. One example is Snow White, who never bothers to try to fight the evil queen herself. There are stereotypes that imply women and girls are good only for cooking, cleaning, and bearing children, preferably sons. And there's the classic dumb blonde stereotype, which really only applies to women.
Gender stereotypes have plagued generations of young women through their roles in the classic Disney princess movies. One of the most prominent stereotypes relates to body image. Excluding the newest addition to the Disney Bureau, Merida, all the princesses seem to share the same combination of features. Long, flowing hair, flawless skin, cute bun noses, large eyes, and a stunning figure, complete with an almost non-existent waist. This has become the ideal, albeit impossible to achieve, model of the female. Is this really the standard we want to be given to young girls nowadays?
One of the major problems is that society and culture both seem to maintain that females are objects, things to be owned and admired by men, and not living, thinking people. This may contribute to the media controversy, prostitution, sexual exploitation, some rapes, most disrespect, a lot of gender prejudice, and nearly all the stereotypes.
Boys and sexism. Throughout numerous speeches on sexism and several campaigns for equal gender rights, boys are barely mentioned. But society is sexist towards boys, too.
Many boys daily struggle with the unrealistic expectations and pressures society inflicts on them. You've heard the female stereotypes. Well, male stereotypes call for boys and men to be stoic, independent, aggressive, and assertive. We once heard a story about a little boy in a park who broke his arm and burst out crying. Nearby strangers harshly told him to toughen up and be a man. The poor kid broke his arm, for heaven's sake. Is this really the kind of society we want kids living in? Not all boys are competitive jocks whose interests rarely leave the basketball court. Boys are not tough-skinned and emotionless creatures who don't require any support to survive. And hopefully, boys aren't content being portrayed that way.
Boys tend to bear the brunt of gender policing. Gender roles are often more enforced with sons rather than daughters. If a girl has traits that are traditionally considered more masculine, she is dismissed as a tomboy and told that this will eventually wear off. But if a boy has traditionally feminine traits, he can be bullied and ridiculed. It's called soft, lazy, girly. The important thing is for everyone to be him or herself. If you're a boy who hates sports and would rather doodle or something, go ahead. But if you're glued to the football field and proud of it, that's great too.
Sexism in books, movies, and video games. We've all cracked open a perfectly good book to find a heroine who completely ticks us off. Maybe her life starts when a boy or man walks in. Maybe she's a brilliant fighter, except when there's a member of the opposite gender around. Or maybe the author makes her out to be really brave and smart, but she isn't, and everyone knows it except the characters. Whichever heroine you come across, there's a pretty good chance that you were so busy hating her that you couldn't pay attention to the actually excellent plot. So, the question is, are the characters to blame, or the authors? Why can't authors create a heroine who's a good role model for girls everywhere? Is society affecting the way they portray their female protagonists? There are plenty of sniveling, submissive damsels in distress, and I, for one, am sick of being stuck in their heads.
We're bringing up the Harry Potter series for one point, the secondary female characters. Hogwarts is filled with groups of giggling girls who are rarely serious. Some critics call this sexist and say that the silliness of the girls contrasts with the bravado and resourcefulness of the boys. But as Sarah Zettel said in Harry Potter and Philosophy, I reject the notion that I reject the notion that we must tell girls that the only way to be valid human beings is to turn themselves into boys.
The DID, damsel in distress, scenario also plagues movies and video games. All too often, a female is in imminent danger, and it's up to a swashbuckling male to fly in, rescue her, and sweep her off her feet. Women and girls are also objectified in video games, where the female is basically a trophy to be acquired and carried off, or women and girls are portrayed as scantily clad sex objects. The DID scenario most likely originated in older movies based off ancient legends and fairy tales, for example, Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella. However, in the modern age, there is no reason to continue in this vein, which is one reason why we are delighted that The Hunger Games has hit the box office so well.
Great.
Love that movie.
You do too, Emma. Rape. No one ever really seems to want to talk about rape, but it's there. Rape and sexual harassment are much more common than anyone would like to believe. One reason why rape is so prevalent seems to be that some men and boys don't appreciate how wrong it is. Laurie House Anderson, the author of Speak, said in an interview, "I have gotten one question repeatedly from young men. They ask me why Melinda, the main character, was so upset about being raped. I was horrified." Rape can destroy a girl or woman's life. The aftermath can mean both physical and psychological issues, and many raped girls end up developing mental disorders like depression or PTSD, or even committing suicide. Raped girls may not communicate that they have been raped for reasons ranging from fear to shame, which can lead to a repetition of the rape. Regardless, these girls are not getting help, and a rapist is walking around free. Even worse, some raped girls do speak up, but no one listens. These girls usually have their claims laughed off. They are also sometimes shunned, ridiculed, or thought to be exaggerating for attention.
Another horrible thing that can happen to girls reporting rapes is that the crime can be blamed on them. This is what slut-shaming is, implying that the girl either invited or deserved what she got. Raped girls can be scolded for allowing such a thing to happen to them. They may be told that the way they dressed or acted led to being raped, that the boy or man is really not to blame at all. This excuse, blaming the girl or woman, not the boy or man, is far too common in our society. There's one simple thing everyone, male or female, needs to know. Rape is never okay. Nothing justifies a rape. If you're a girl out there struggling with yourself, know this: none of it is your fault. Don't stay silent.
As we all know, things aren't great for girls and women in this world, but there's definitely hope. Feminism advocates are everywhere, speaking up and getting the word out. From Malala Yousafzai of Pakistan to the women in Congress who are being credited for getting the government back up again, girls and women are shouting out. Boys and men are getting sick of sexism too. They want to make a change, and that's part of what we need.
We hope that there will come a time when every person is comfortable in their own skin, and everyone is respected regardless of gender. We hope everyone will look at the sexist things they see every day and try to make a difference. And, most of all, we hope that 100 years in the future, people will find a copy of this speech and think, wow, it's so weird that they had to talk about sexism. There's nothing like that now. Thank you.